This is a budget hearing for the police department. I'm joined by my colleague Pat Hogan, Martin Nave, Corey Williams, Rita Peniawa, and Jimmy Manto. Here with us is Chief Cecil and Lieutenant Brian
Lutzer.
Lutzer. I gotta get that name right. Got it. Lieutenant Lutzer, and then we have Chief Shaw, Chief Trudell, and budget department is here as well. So we just give us an overview, and we'll get into the details.
Yep.
But take it away.
All right, thanks, Counselor. I'll give my usual summary, then open it up to questions. You know, I'm playing with house money this year because I'm leaving at the end of the year, so you can ask me anything you want. It doesn't really matter. No, I'm just joking. You keep working until the end of the year. But have Lieutenant Lutz here, obviously, and the entire Syracuse team for the questions. But just want to go over staffing real quick. So all of you know, our budgeted strength, meaning the number we're allowed to have, is 419. And that includes everyone from myself on down. So it's not just officers, it's detectives and the command staff, 419. Our actual strength, as I sit here today, is 388. So it seems as if we're just down 31 positions, but I want to clarify that. Out of that 388, 17 of those are recruits that are in our current academy and won't be on the road on their own until deep into this year, because they still have much of the academy left and then field training after that. So there's 17 out of that 388. And then there's 8 officers that graduated from our newest academy that are still in the middle of field training. So you now have really what we have actually on the road patrolling the city is 56 positions lower than that 419, because those officers are not on the road yet. They're in different stages of the academy or field training. And keep in mind, this is not through a lack of effort. We just I think it was last month, swore in the 11th academy under Mayor Walsh. I believe that's a record. I have never seen that many under a mayor. He's also asked us to begin to look at seeing if we can put on another academy before the end of 2025, which we're currently looking into doing. So that'll be his 12th one. The challenge, of course, as all you counselors know, is overall interest in the job itself, which continues to lag. Our civil service exams, which used to have hundreds of people on it, and even thousands when I came on, continually has just under 100 every time it's given. And out of those 100 candidates, they are sought after by everyone in Onondaga County, and most of those folks will take multiple tests. So they're not only sought after by Onondaga County, they're sought after by every agency in CNY in Central New York and beyond, even the state police, because they'll take every civil service test that they can at the same time. And it'll be about 100 people sought after by everyone in Onondaga County and beyond. So that's our challenge, is the interest. And I want to mention this too, the lack of interest is not through a lack of effort from our recruitment section. I know most of you have probably met Lieutenant Tom. He has regressed our recruitment section well beyond the years where all we did was set up a table at the state fair to microsites where people can go on and take a look at the police department in a short microsite, and then move beyond that to actually speak with an officer one-on-one. There's ride-alongs, there's study sessions for academic reasons, there's physical fitness sessions to get people in shape, to pass that part of it. All these things he's done. One of the geniuses things that Lieutenant Tom did when he took over the recruitment section is relatability. So if he's going to an event with new Americans, he sends officers that are in fact new Americans. If he's going to a military installation to recruit military folks, he sends officers that are military veterans. If he's going to a college, he looks around, tries to find officers that actually graduated from that university, so they can go there and there's relatability. And that has produced, this last academy we swore in was the largest academy we've had in 4 or 5 years. Well, we swore in 23, but 6 have dropped out since then. So there's 17 now. But 23 was larger than we've seen in 4 or 5 years. I don't know. I'll have to get that for you. I don't really know exactly. We do have those. We have those numbers because we've got this down to a science, but I'm not really positive. It may be a little higher than usual, but I can get that for you. You know, it's not like the old days where we put 40 people in an academy, 45, you know, but as Einstein said, everything's relative. So we'll take the 23, we'll take the 17, still larger than it used to be. And that's a result of all that recruitment. Our cadet program is beginning to pay off as well. There's two cadets that are currently in this academy and doing very well, but they're in the academy. So that cadet program is beginning to pay dividends as well. When we have, it's the one that we have in-house. So some of the people come from Fowler, but they come from elsewhere too, and we put them through an intern program for a full year. The benefit of a counselor is not only are they learning how to take this test, but they're doing physical fitness every day too. Because the two gateways to get into this police department is the test, but there's also a physical fitness test that's given by the county, and if you don't pass that, you're not in. So, and not to mention, they're also working around the building, learning every aspect of this police department. So many times when they enter the academy, they actually become the leaders in the academy because they know so much more than the person who hasn't done this cadet program. So it's beginning to pay off for us. And we're doing everything we can to attract and hire candidates. But the reality, once again, is the interest is not there. It hasn't recovered yet. And we're always fighting to overcome the deficit of being behind. There were some administrations that just kind of refused to hire. And when you fall into that hole for a police department, very, very difficult to climb back out of it. And it's for two reasons. One of them is retirements. As we all know, we're expecting 15 to 20 retirements this year. It could go a little higher than that because we have a large class that in July will be ready to retire. Not to say they will all retire, but they could. And the second reason, and all the counselors know this, but I want to mention it for those that are viewing this hearing. The second reason is this. Unlike, and I won't add this fire department in this because they have a long hiring process as well. But if you talk about fire, you talk about water, DPW, parks, any other department in the city, codes, they post a job, they do some interviews, they put the person on the job within weeks, maybe a month at the outside. From the day the mayor says green light, hire, it is a full year before the candidate will hit the road on his or her own and be patrolling the streets. You have 3 months of background that goes on, you have a 6-month academy, and then you have 3 months of field training. So that is why it's so difficult to pull yourself out of a deficit. But again, 11th Academy is in there now. The 12th one will be hopefully put in place at the end of the year, and we're doing our best to pull ourselves out and get full staffing so that we can do all these other things that everyone wants us to do. I will say this, though, even with our low numbers, the officers are doing an incredible amount of proactive work, sandwiched in between the 911 calls that never stop, Cobra curves and walking beats and bike patrols throughout the city, and an incredible amount of proactive work I'm sure you've all seen downtown, specifically around Salt City, that was experiencing a large degree of crime and other nuisance things going on. ComStat has proven out that work is working. Part 1 crime is down 21.7% from this time last year. And in between that 27%, what you have is 14.6% down in violent crime, and property crime is down almost 30%. One of the big categories, and I want to specifically mention it, stolen vehicles down 55%. The reason I want to mention it is because that reduction is a combination of police and community working together. Crime awareness led to crime prevention, including 2,000 steering wheel locks being handed out free, and the dealerships of the affected models doing record numbers of software upgrades has brought that number down 55% from last year. We continue to do our work with Liberty Resources and 911 Center toward alternative response for mental health calls. That continues to expand, and we continue to do CPTED, Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design program, which now incorporates almost every city department as well as county and state partners in an effort to reduce crime by addressing the very factors that attract it and allow it to continue in different parts of the city. So those are just two things I want to highlight, the alternative response and CPTED. And I think that's pretty much it. And I certainly we all welcome any questions that you have about the budget or anything else.
Chief, on page 185, can you go over contractual obligations? It's 511200.
You know that one, Brian? Did you want? You talking about this one?
Contractual obligation, yeah.
Yeah.
What is that?
You want to cover that one?
So that is, there's a provision in the PBA contract where if you don't take any sick time for the year, you can sell back a certain amount of your sick hours. And there's a couple different tiers. You know, if you take one sick day, you can sell so many hours. If you've only taken two, you can sell so many. This is accounting for paying all those hours out that the officers are not using and are selling back.
So they're getting reimbursed. I mean, for hours that they don't use or they're selling them.
They're getting an incentive to not use sick time.
Okay.
So like if I go for a calendar year and I don't take a single sick day, I have the opportunity to sell back 80 hours of my sick time at my regular hourly rate.
Does any of that go to the retirement fund when they do retire? Does that accrue into that or no?
I'm not positive that is pensionable or not.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, we don't, I don't know, we were asking for 6.5 million this year. We're going to try and manage it as well as we can to keep it down. You're right, you can't, it is a crystal ball, you can't predict. I will tell you that the 10-hour day has dropped some of our major, producers of overtime. Minimum staffing, which is where we backfill, officers when we have gaps in the shifts, has dropped substantially because of the 10-hour day. And then also, emergency response backfill, when we send our ERT people, our SWAT people out for multiple trainings that they need to have, we have to backfill their spots, and because many of them are in patrol too. That has dropped as well because we started doing the training on what we call power days, which are 2 times a month when you have both of the rest groups in, so you have an enormous amount of people working on those days. So yes, we do think we can, it has dropped, and I think it'll continue to drop, Counselor. We'll just manage it as best we can. It's just, again, you can't predict, certain tragedies that occur out there that can raise it, but we're going to manage it best we can.
So 58,675, that's starting right out of the academy?
The salary?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
That sounds correct, Counselor.
58,675. So the range on that police officer salary, that's other officers transferring in the higher level, like the range is 58 to 92, so the 92 would be someone coming off with experience?
It could be somebody coming with experience, but also the PBA contract has 5 steps on the pay scale. So, an entry-level officer gets the 58,000 you mentioned. After a year, they go to step 1, step 2, step 3.
So you have 31 vacancies, give and take, right? Are those all officers' vacancies?
Yes.
So do you have additional vacancies throughout the department, like in administration or other positions, besides the officers?
Yeah, I think there's a couple command level folks, but, it seems like everybody at the job these days, Counselor, especially our command level people are doing multiple jobs now. Some of them are doing 4 or 5 jobs. So there are some gaps there. We try our best to manage the promotions because of the trickle down effect. You promote a lieutenant or captain, and you're going to have to promote a sergeant, and that sergeant's going to take up an officer that's going to be on the road taking calls. So we try to manage that as best we can, but there are gaps even in command staff. Yep.
Chief, this whole budget season, I feel like I've taken the responsibility of laying out on the table the uncomfortable realities and things that people don't want to acknowledge, don't want to talk about.
Okay.
We've got a dual mandate here on the council. We have to provide for our citizens. We need to make sure they're protected. We also have the fiduciary interest of the city in mind in all the decisions that we make. If we take your sworn, civilian, and police and fire retirement, we get up to $98 million, which is 28% of every dollar that we're going to spend as a city in the coming year. You know, we layer on top of that the fact that we've got a roughly $34 million gap between our revenue and our expenditures. That means that 1 out of every $10 we spend, we're taking out of our savings. We have a huge percent of our expenditures going to our police department, you know, to protecting our citizens. You know, when we think about, you know, haven't been shy about the fact that I'm concerned about the long-term viability of our city and the finances and the financial picture we have, you know, not just current year, but looking 2 years, 5 years, 8 years out into the future. We can't keep borrowing from our savings at the rate that we are. You know, we've got a financial challenge in front of us. How do we, you know, how do we justify 1 out of every $4, almost 1 out of every $3 going to fire? You know, if we need to find savings, we look at the biggest players, right? Yeah. You know, I've got the commissioner of assessment in the back of the room, and he comes to mind because we were talking about whether or not we wanted to give him a promotion for an employee that was a $7,000 raise. We're talking about $7,000 with him. We're talking about $100 million with your crew. What are the decisions that you're making as a team to think about the long-term financial sustainability of our city? And what advice would you give to the council, knowing that we need to manage the deficit, our future, and in our public safety?
Yes, and Councilor, are you talking
Chief,
about, when you mentioned that, oh, go ahead.
before you answer that, to go along with this, also include the restructuring of the scheduling, the lack of resources that we have, and the reason that we do have a bigger budget, and how you're trying to manage that as well.
Yep, thanks. And are you talking, I know you threw out a number, was it the number of, was it the retirement number, or are you talking about the budget itself?
All the above, you know, because your, you know, your officer's current salary ends up in that retirement line.
Yep, yep. Okay. Okay, yeah, understood. I guess that was the longest question I've ever got. But, you know, I'll say.
He's famous for those.
Jimmy asked me to write him a sentence, I give him a paragraph.
I will say it like this, and I'm going to be unabashed about this. This is nothing against other city departments, but when you don't have police out there, people die. They get injured, they get victimized, sexually assaulted. All those things occur when you don't have police out there. It doesn't happen when you don't have water, you don't have codes, you don't have even fire, and again, not against anyone else. So they do get paid a lot. They get paid to deal with unimaginable things out there. And not to mention unimaginable things that are happening while they're out there, whether it's people in their face with a phone, screaming and yelling horrible things, but the trauma that comes with going to a situation where you see a dead child, as they did over on Roney Lane. Numerous officers were on that scene to see a dead child in the hallway, dead from his father. So they get paid a lot. I think they earn it all. We do manage the money. As I said before, the 10-hour day has helped us manage that. That was part of a contractual thing. I think the overall best answer I can give you is when these contracts come up, you should look to them, and we have done this in the last 2 contracts. I will tell you, prior to the last 2 contracts, it was more or less just, here's 4%, and you get nothing for it. Now we've looked at what will benefit us. Even the thing that he was mentioning about sick time, that has benefited us by putting officers in the seats, in roll call, so we don't have to bring other officers in on double time and fill those seats. So many of this can get resolved in the contract negotiations if you're worried about sustainability, and I understand why you would be. You can't sustain a deficit forever. You're eventually not going to be able to survive. But as far as the salaries of these police officers, what they're making, I would defend it at any podium, given the work that they do out there day in and day out, and the trauma that they suffer. And I've said this many times before, because I've looked into it years and years ago, and it only increases. Every every health-related issue that you have out there, whether it's cardiovascular disease, sleep disorders, PTSD, depression, alcoholism. You can go down the entire list. And outside of the military, police officers have it higher than any other profession out there. And it's because of what they see and what they deal with. The most salient one is PTSD and depression, which is 4 or 5 times higher than anyone else other than the military. And every one of them is higher substantially, not just 2 times higher, but 3 or 4 times higher. So I would defend those salaries because of what they do out there and the work they do. As far as my advice, again, on moving forward, I think those things need to be ironed out with the contract. They have been over the years, just so you know, Counselor. When I came on, my retirement is based on 1/60th. It's called the 1/60th rule. When I leave, I get 70% of my salary, the highest of my 3 years. Over the years, people have come and gone into different tiers because of contractual things. There are now tiers where officers can't accrue that. They can only accrue 50% of their salary. They have to pay into that now. There's certain tiers where they're paying into the retirement, so the city isn't accruing all of it. There's some of them that can't. Their overtime doesn't even go into that retirement. So it has been somewhat ironed out over the years through these tiers. But as far as their salaries themselves, I'd defend it any day of the week.
And I hope you don't get the impression that I'm trying to diminish the work that your guys do.
not.
You know,
No, I know.
I've given you
I know that
calls
because
looking
you
for
call me
help.
every other day.
I sure
So,
do.
yes, about that.
But, you know, I'm just trying to take a bigger picture and say, you know, we've got this book and there's one line that's a really, really, really big line. And when we look long term, the numbers don't work.
Yeah.
So what do we do?
Yeah. And Councilor Wilson, some of it could be ironed out with some of these alternative responses we're doing. You know, in other cities that have had that for a longer period of time, I think Eugene, Oregon, they've offloaded, I can't remember the number now, but it's a substantial number of mental health calls. Offloaded, no police officer goes to the scene at all, and it's thousands of calls. Offloaded to these mental health experts who are better suited to take this call. And what is done is, let the officers do the job they're supposed to be doing. Now, will that translate down the road to needing only 360 officers? I don't know. But some of these alternative responses we're doing could down the road limit the number that we need for staffing and again shrink that number. I guess it's possible.
What is the time frame at which a shift like that is viable? You know, would it take 1 year, 2 years, 5
The
years?
alternative response?
Yeah.
Well, listen, we've been working on it for, just as an example, we've been working on it and most of it's been done by Deputy Chief Russin, and unfortunately he's at a conference in Arizona, but he's been working on it for 2 years, and I believe the last number I heard was we've offloaded 4 or 5% of our calls. Small number, so it takes a while. But some of the real hard work has been done. The difficult work, really, to be honest, is being done other than the mental health experts, 911, because they're the ones up there that have to go through this flow chart and decide whether or not to send someone to the scene that isn't a police officer. And it's tricky. I mean, think about sending somebody to a situation and having something happen to that person. So we are over that hurdle now, though. So now 911 is doing a phenomenal job of deciding and making these rapid decisions on who goes. So, and that was a big hurdle, which held us up for a while. But that's over with now. So we may see that increase continue over the years and exponentially.
Can I go, and I'll ask my colleagues for permission. Can I go 2 more items for the chief, and then I'll default to
He's
you.
hammering you pretty good here.
2 things, chief. One, on page 8, there's a outside agencies line. Went up significantly, went up by about half
Sorry, what page are you on?
$500,000. Page 8 of our budget book.
8. Yeah. Ours started at 170s and
Yeah,
stuff.
and that's a revenue line. What revenue are we getting from outside agencies?
I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah.
Just hold on a second.
Page 8.
Yeah, I got it. 35%, 8%.
Which
go
line
ahead.
item are you talking
Go
about?
ahead and answer. It's fine. No, I'm
415910,
humble
it's
enough.
police services, outside agencies, about a $500,000 increase in revenue.
Is that-
I don't even know what that is.
Is that
I'm
the
legitimately
assistance-
asking.
The assisted services for other agencies that we help with, right? Or is that other agencies
Correct.
helping us?
Yeah, those are third party, like, for instance, we have officers working at the Central Bus Depot in overtime. They work for Syracuse University, working the Dome events.
Festivals, stuff like that.
Festival, well, the festivals,
Festivals of city.
The dome's a different line as well, a different revenue line.
but all those places we work throughout the city that reimburse us, this is what's catching that. As time goes on, there's more and more demand for our people to work in that capacity. So as that increases, the expected revenue increases along with it.
How do they come to you asking for help?
It comes through the head of HR, but then it's passed on to us. And what we've done over the years, Counselor, so it's not just, hey, I need an officer here, I need an officer there, because it does increase their retirement as well. So what we've done over the years is decide, give the Central Hub as an example, decide whether or not it benefits the city and the police department, meaning look at how many calls we're going to Central already, meaning patrol cars are going there. So if we put somebody there and have them pay for it, we're not responding. That means patrol officers can do something else. And certainly with Dome, I mean, that's, reimbursable too. But when someone comes to us and approaches us, we try to figure out, again, whether it's not just a benefit for them, more importantly, is it a benefit for the city and the police department, as in we're taking calls there already. Another example, which isn't a good one, but, Parkside Commons just recently.
You took it right out of my mouth. Chief.
Yes, they just recently terminated the officers up there. I'm not going to say it's a direct result of that, but we've had crime up there up to and including a homicide as soon as they were terminated up there. They're going to bring in private security and put up cameras. It isn't the same. But that is one where we always accommodated because it's going to be us going now. The security is going to observe and report the 911, and then we're going to be going there. But they just did that, and we tried to convince them otherwise.
Do they terminate those generally because are we more expensive than what they're doing now?
100%.
A lot more expensive.
A lot more expensive than someone who's just going to observe and report. These officers are walking around there, forming reporters. They were typically the same officers for the last 15 years. So you can imagine the relationships they formed up there. And people see them. They walk up to them. They know who's supposed to be on property, who's not supposed to be on property, who the drug dealers are, who the good tenants are, and much more valuable and certainly worth it than this private security that, for good or bad, they might be an exceptional private security. They're not from around here, and they're not going to know anything about that property. Yeah. But that's why, Counselor, it's money.
Stupid decision. How's that for on the record?
That's good.
My last item, I appreciate it all. Again, in the revenue line, parking tickets.
Yeah.
It's funny because in the budget time of year, I look at it from a revenue standpoint. Every other day of the year, I'm looking at it from a quality of life standpoint. Up in our neighborhood, double parked, parking over sidewalks, parked illegally, Thorndon Park, every day, all day. What can we do to, again, I'm going to pull the number out of it, not to issue more tickets from a revenue generation standpoint, but for quality of life. What are your guys able to help us with, or what are alternatives to what we're currently doing, to both improve neighborhoods, improve walkability, and as a nice byproduct, increase that revenue line?
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. Yeah. We are, the mayor actually asked us to look at that for both reasons as well. So we are looking to, and I don't know if Chief Schaaf wants to get up, but we are looking currently to hire more parking checkers. This time, not just have them work during the day where they get their tickets downtown, but hire ones specifically who know they're going to be working weekends and evenings, and they're going to be going out to those neighborhoods, Thorndon Park and various places where it's chronic, where they can go every night of the week and pick up, sidewalks, blocking sidewalks, grass, from here to corner, fire hydrant, and those kind of things. So we're looking to do that. Go ahead, Rich.
You covered most of it, Chief, but we actually formed a working group here a few weeks ago to try to look at this holistically and, to get parking checkers instead of just working days, working nights and weekends, maybe try to get somebody down in the armory. We've got new devices put into for the officers to use. We're going to get it moved into the cars, make them more accessible, and a whole host of different ideas and well-entertaining ideas that people have about how we can increase our response to those. I talked to a couple other departments to see if they're interested in that, in assisting with that stuff too, so we have a whole host of ways that we're looking at that very issue.
Yeah, and again, I realize that to a certain extent, the budget book is aspirational, but the revenue from that is flat year to year, last year to current year, and I'm really hoping that jumps up significantly, again, for both the reasons stated.
Yeah, no, I understand, Councilor. And, when Rich and I first came on, I'm not sure when it was done away with, but I think it was, the state said it was illegal. We used to have minimum quotas. You had to get so many vehicle and traffic, so many parking tickets, or you got to discipline, but it was deemed to be.
So that's the stick. And I've always wondered, is the carrot a thing? Like, can we incentivize rather than mandate? Can we say, X amount per shift, boom, there's a little,
I think we
more in your
can.
paycheck.
Yep, no, I think we can. Well, we won't did you say put it in their paycheck?
I don't know, can we do that? But, I'm sure it would offset, right?
That would work. But yeah, we're looking at a bunch of things, as Chief Schaaf said. I think you'll see an improvement in parking tickets. Yep.
Thank you.
So,
I'm done,
Chief,
guys.
I was just wondering, and I've been looking at this budget, it seems like for years, and we've always had 420 officers, fully funded positions. But now we have like 300, what do we got, 378 officers?
88.
You mean budgeted or actual?
No, actual officers.
388, yes.
So, but we always fund 420. So we always have some money left over. And every budget's aspirational, obviously. And I'm just wondering do you think we'll ever get up to 420 officers? Within the next decade or anything like that? I don't know.
I think in the next decade we could do it as long as we keep pushing academies out. I think this lack of interest will eventually pass, and we'll start seeing the civil service test increase. Not to mention all these other things with cadets. We have incentives for laterals. We're doing pretty well with laterals, meaning other agencies are deciding they'd rather do. We just brought one over the other day that he's in an urban police department and suburban police department, and he lives in the city. And he said, I've always wanted, you just weren't hiring at the time, but I've always wanted to do urban policing and help my community. He just came over. So I think through a series of things, I think in the next decade, I hope we can, Pat, but we do always have that in there. And, it's.
And we've talked before about the residency issue, where, in my opinion, anything that's an impediment to having officers on the street, in the cars, and in their neighborhoods is a bad idea the way it is now. I think we got to rethink. And that, of course, I know the police, fire, and DPW for years, the state, they could live anywhere they wanted to. But now, because of the police contract and the mayor's police contract, 5 years they have to, when they first sign up. And I think we got to. I think we have to be nimble and think about everything.
Yeah. Understood. Yep. And I will say this though. Residency is one of our challenges, but again, at the top of the list, far beyond any other challenge we have, it's just interest in the job. It just isn't. It isn't there. It hasn't come back. It just needs to come back. If you don't have a pool of people to reach for, meaning that civil service list.
As far as numbers go, and maybe Mike, so if, we're funded to 420 officers, if like, we end up getting 385 or something, that extra money that's in the budget, the police budget, that goes into overtime, or what happens to that? It'll end up going to, and since it's an interdepartment transfer, does that come before us or not?
No, typically, Mike Kennis, our Commissioner of Finance, at least for the last 2 to 3 years, you'll see, the salary line under budget by $1.5 million, and then you'll see overtime over budget by the similar amount. So really, those lines wash.
Okay, so that's what I figured, is that 400 officers would be about a $1.5 million on the projected savings on the projected positions. So that ends up going into overtime probably.
Yeah, it does.
So you keep under the budget.
Typically we go over overtime budget, but also typically we stay within the overall budget. Typically, yep.
Well,
The
like I said,
lack of interest, is that just a general malaise, or is it more of a lack of interest in urban police departments than it is suburban?
It's definitely overall, because, Counselor, that the test given, civil service test is a countywide test. So when you take it, you're, for instance, you're interested in Manlius, DeWitt, County, and that list itself is under 100 people. So it's just a general malaise. And, it's just not, young people aren't seeing it as an attractive job. Yep.
Chief, I want to go to page 184, and that is that's the page for the heavy hitters, in a sense that out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, out of 6 line from chief to sergeant, you have 90 positions in that. Right?
Yeah.
From sergeant to lieutenant to captain to deputy chief to all the way to you.
Okay.
That's 90 if you add, I guess, Council William, my math right? I gotta.
I'm looking
lean
at
on you for my
DPW
math.
right now. I can't get there.
All right. So that's 90 position. I guess, my question to that is that set by the civil service, or do you have hand in it? And is there a limit?
Right.
Out of that 90, you are looking at 420 total. And 90 of that have a supervisory capacity. Now, is that a growing number, or is that predetermined? Because 90 out of 420, that's quite a bit.
Yeah, well, so let me just start from the sergeants on up. But the sergeants, it's a big number. It's a big number because officers in our department is very young. They need supervision out there. The actual DCJS standards, as I recall, I haven't looked at them in a while, but I think they believe the span of supervision should be 6 to 8 officers per sergeant. It's well beyond that, even with 58 sergeants and all the people that are on the road. So we've stretched that limit. But supervisors are well worth their spot on here, because they're supervising these young officers in every available thing out there, whether it's use of force, arrest, burglaries, things like that. So you have to have supervision out there. And then when you go to the lieutenants, they're overseeing the shifts themselves. It's not just paperwork for the lieutenants anymore. They're out there on the street supervising the sergeants, and you go right up. Our captains right now are probably the strongest set of captains I have ever seen in my 40 years. And those are the ones, as I was telling the other counselors, are each one of them is doing 4 or 5 jobs. I mean, Captain Milana is here right now because Chief Russin isn't here, and he's one of the ones doing 6, 7 jobs right now. And the quality of those captains and the work they're doing out there is well worth it, and certainly something we wouldn't want to do away with. And I'm not saying you're suggesting that. I will say is, I know one question was, are they set? They're not necessarily set, other than that span of control, 6 to 8 officers per sergeant, and then sergeants need to have a supervision from the lieutenant, and then captains as well. So that's not even set. We could change that ourselves. That's just what the standard, what the Department of Criminal Justice is telling us. And we've changed over the years to have less captains, less lieutenants, more lieutenants. When Chief Buckner was in and he split the city up into 3 quadrants, he wanted to have a lieutenant on all 3 shifts of all 3 quadrants. And so suddenly we went from 4 lieutenants to 9. And so it's changed over the years. But every one of those folks are doing an important job. And I cannot stress enough the sergeant's level of supervising those young officers. They have to be out on the street and supervising them, not just for questions, but when they're on a scene where there's a disturbance or something of that nature.
And you said 68 with sergeant, 68 officers per sergeant. What about the captain? What's the math around that?
There's no real necessarily math around that because each one of our captains has different roles. Like we have well, obviously they're on the patrol. We have a captain on each one of the patrol shifts, but you also have a captain in charge of CID, a criminal investigation division. You have a captain in charge of our drug unit. You have a captain in charge of, we have Captain Milano who's in charge of, again, 7 or 8 different things. So it's not a span of control for them. It's really a span of responsibility of actual things that they have duties to do. You know, you look at this list, Counselor, and I'm not just being humble here, but the person you could eliminate most of all on this entire list would probably be me. Because I've surrounded myself with people who could do the job better than I can. But they are valuable, they are all necessary, and I mean, I appreciate the question because it allows me to explain to the public what those individuals do. Would we like to have more in the category of the 330 that are actually out there taking the calls? Absolutely. But you throw a bunch of officers out there without supervision, we are going to have issues.
I want to go back to a question that was asked earlier, which is on page 185 under contractual obligation, and then the sick time buyback. I didn't quite understand that because when you explain it, it sort of sound like the same. Can you differentiate the contractual obligation and the sick time buyback? They're right there.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the sick time buyback, that, when an officer retires under the PBA contract, they can sell back up to 250 hours of unused sick time. So the 5113 line is to handle that portion of the retirement payout for those officers. The contractual obligation line is for the current officers who complete a given calendar year without taking any sick time. They have the option to sell back 80 hours of sick time. While they're currently working, they're afforded that opportunity each year when they use little to no sick time. So one is for retirement, one is an ongoing annual option for the officers.
Okay.
So when I asked earlier about you weren't sure if that unused sick time can go back to towards their pension, you weren't sure?
Correct. I'm not sure, Counselor.
Okay.
We can certainly get you an answer, but I'm not positive.
Okay, but their pension, where is their pension listed unless it's personal? Where would that be?
Special objects,
Special? Okay, thank you.
page 48.
Page 48. Is it 48?
Well, right there, too, Marty.
All right.
Top line.
Okay. So that is going, okay, so that will continue to grow. Is it like cost of living or for the amount of police officers who are retiring?
For the 5113 line,
For
or
Pension payments in
pension
general.
payment, I should say.
I would tell you over time, let's say the number of officers stays the same. The chief spoke earlier about how officers now have to contribute 3% to retirement throughout their career. And the other thing is, somebody who has a lot of time, like I'm a tier 2.
Okay,
Any overtime I earn counts towards my pension.
all right.
The newer tiers, they're capped at how much above their base salary can go towards their pension. So if the city has to pay in 25% for somebody like myself, over time, that percentage should go down because the newer officers can only make, to use numbers, say 10 grand above their salary, whereas I could make 40 grand over my salary in overtime, and it all counts.
Okay.
So the state should need less of a contribution. Obviously, salaries are going to increase, and that's going to have an effect on the contribution.
Right.
But comparing one to the other, the pension cost for a single person proportionally should go down as we have more and more of those tier 5 and 6 people.
But we're going to have a lot of folks retire. I mean, obviously, we're right in a phase, right, Chief? I mean, as far as a lot A lot of those police officers that came on during the Clinton years when we actually got that federal money, when we got up to 500 officers, they're sort of transitioning out now,
I'm
retiring.
the only one of those left.
You're the only one?
Maybe Rich, I'm not sure. But yeah,
Well, that
every
was
year, we
30
every year we
years
have
ago.
15 to 20 of them. A lot of those ones have gone, but every year you have, average of 15 to 20 officers retire. We know that it'll be 15 or 20. We can already see the writing on the wall. And again, we have a class of, in July of 15 that are going to come up on retirement. We don't know how many of those will leave beyond that 15 or 20. So it could be a high year, but it could be low. You just never know until you see it. But it's an average of 15 or 20.
So that's good, so it's sort of leveled off then, as far as the retirement goes.
What's that?
I said it's sort of leveling off from when we had a large amount of police officers, like 500.
Oh, clearly, yeah, there was, I mean, one year we had 57 people walk out the door. So, yeah, it's leveled off. It's slowed down. And I think after this next July class, where they'll be eligible, I think I heard that there won't be another class eligible for another 4 years to actually retire. So you may see even more of a trickle down, even more of a slowdown, hopefully, of retirements.
Chief, on page 187, there is special patrol officers. You got 57 of those, and it's projected to go to 67. What do they do?
That's a great question. I'm gonna, Chief Trudell's here. I think he's all prepared for this question.
Hi, Deputy Chief Trudell. To answer your question specifically, so special patrol officers are sworn peace officers. Typically, we hire retirees back, so they're vetted employees, they're good employees, and really, they are a force multiplier for us. For every 2 SPOs that we have out there doing work, would equal 1 police officer we would have to take off the street in order to fill that job. So currently, we had 36 special patrol officers out there. There's 9 of them in our cops camera unit. Those are the ones that are watching our cameras during the day, at night, radioing to our officers when they see crime, assisting with apprehension. We have our compliance unit, and that is something new based on the discovery laws, being able to pull all of the information that the police department has on court cases and sending it off to the DA's office. We have 5 SPOs doing that. Our property division has a good number as well. There's Office of Professional Standards. SEPTED work that the chief mentioned. We have three officers doing the SEPTED work across the city. Crime scene unit, records, information technology, our cadet program, Vicky Barada and 2 SPOs in addition to her. And so those are the folks that we have out there right now. And like I said, if we didn't have those folks there, we'd be pulling police officers off the street to do that work. So definitely a force multiplier for us. And then in the future, what we'd like to do, we've already got 1 in a cold case unit right now. We'd like to expand that with 2, working on our cold case homicides. When it comes to video collection as well, investigations have largely changed over the years. We're heavily reliant on evidence in terms of video evidence, as opposed to talking to people and getting confessions, that sort of thing. And there's video everywhere. So in order to comply with the discovery laws that I mentioned, we need officers to go out on the street, go to the cameras, pull the video off, download it, put it in a format that can be read by the DA's office. Now, our police officers are doing that, or our crime scene unit. What we'd like to do is take special patrol officers, offload that work, and allow the special patrol officers to do that. And then there's also some ones for the patrol area in the garage that we are looking to add special patrol officers as well. So they really are a big force multiplier for us in terms of getting work done in the police department that otherwise would take a police officer.
Just add what the chief said. Also, in that number, there are 20 positions that are for the city school district for SPOs. There's a financial offset in the budget because the school district would be reimbursing the city, but we're not looking to have 67 at the PD. The positions Chief Trudell just went over come up to the 47. The other 20 are to put people in those schools.
You say you offer 20 to the district What did you say? How many?
There are 20 spots for the school district.
And how many have you offered to them?
Zero.
Zero.
Yeah, so
Zero?
far,
There's-
so far, they haven't been able to recruit anyone for it. They've put it in their budget for reimbursement every year, and we've put it in ours, not money-wise, but the spots. But they so far have not been able to recruit one ex-police officer that wants to do this job. And it would benefit us, Counselor, if we could get special police officers in these other schools, other than the high schools where we already have officers, because officers are responding to these schools on complaints all the time. So it would certainly benefit us, but they just haven't been able to recruit anyone.
You know, I'm gonna, maybe this is just maybe for the sake of redundancy, if for whatever that means, for the overtime wages, right? Council William had talked earlier last year, you know, forgot, was it $5 million that it was projected? I think you ended up spending almost $9.7 million last year. And this year is, you're projecting it to be 6.5. I'm wondering, as from the layman eyes, you know, if there are strategies that we can read or see in terms of you managing it. As, you know, like I said, it's kind of alluded to earlier, but to kind of see if there are strategies that you have in-house, how to manage it. We understand that there is a lot that goes on into police work, which require money. But at the same time, to Councilor Williams' point earlier,
Yeah.
you know, it's becoming, you know, it's heading toward a space where it's going to be financially almost, you know, difficult to afford.
Yeah.
And it would take work from your leadership, the city leadership, everybody, right? It's a long way to say, what are some of your strategies in getting that under control?
Yeah, so it's a great question, Council. One of our big strategies was that 10-hour day, which not only benefited the officers, they love it, but it benefited the city. You know, when we have specific things we need to do throughout the week, throughout the month, if we can plan them, and Deputy Chief Rustin has done a great job of planning them around those power days so that we have the extra officers on the shift already, and we're not bringing them in for overtime. For instance, downtown, or even handing out those steering wheel locks when we were doing that last year to people that have the affected models. We started doing that on power days, so everybody that was doing that was not on overtime, they were on straight time, meaning it was their shift. So 10-hour day has helped us considerably. And we continue to manage the money. We don't just, you know, long gone are those days where we would just, you know, we're going to use it all and we're not going to worry about it. We manage it. Every one of the deputy chiefs gets a budget. They look through it. They try to they try their hardest to stay within that budget. But, you know, you look at downtown, for example. I'm going to use downtown. When Salt City was talking about we can't do business, some of the restaurants are going to close, this, that, and the other thing, and everyone was saying it from the mayor on down, something needs to be done. Rustin put together a strategy that cost almost $500,000 of officers down there, some on overtime, some on straight time, to deal with those issues, and it's worked. You go over there now, and it's much different than it was a year ago. But that stuff costs money. It wasn't something we expected to do. We did it, but it costs money. As far as the things that we can predict, we are managing those. And I have this, I'm trying to find this one piece of paper, because I think it was one thing in it I wanted to mention the, give me a minute here. So if you look at what the 10-hour day has done for us, this is the best example I can give you, is minimum staffing, which was, again, patrol minimum staffing, which was when we're filling in seats because we don't have enough people on a shift, not only for safety reasons, but so we can get to the calls. Prior to the 10-hour shift, we spent over $1 million on that. since the 10-hour shift has been put in place in the year 2025, so to this date, as we sit here today, we've spent $233,000 on it, from 1 million down to 233. That's through management. That's through the 10-hour day. That's through looking at what we can push toward those power days, whether we can use training. We've brought our trainers to the academy, to the patrol shift on power days. Typically what would happen before with training is you'd have to pull them off the shift, and then you'd have to backfill with minimum staffing people. Now we've done a lot of the training on power days. So people who are already working, we can take people off that shift because both rest groups are together and you have a large number of people working on the same day. So we're doing training. We've brought down that number as well, the number of training and the number we're spending on training, but specifically this number of minimum staffing patrol because of that 10-hour day. So we do manage it as best we can. We continue to find ways to do it. We do, again, long gone are those days where we just stand in front of you and say, this is the overtime bill. We actually have a PC, which I'm not sure what that stands for. Program. Anyways, it's a number associated with every single thing we spend overtime on, whether it's festivals downtown, minimum staffing, SWAT call-outs, downtown things, counselors calling us on specific things. We have a PC for every one of those, and we can show you that. It outlines everything we're spending money on.
We'll review that. We'll review that PC finding and results. Is it you that reviews that, or is there a special person that does that?
Yes. So we review it, myself and the deputy chiefs review it, and we look at it and say, well, this number looks a little high. And if it's a patrol, Deputy Chief Rustin will go back to his captions and say, we need to tighten this thing up here. It looks like it's a little high. It looks like we could do better in this category, that category. If it's something that falls like homicides, that falls under Chief Trudell, if he may try to tweak that. Homicides are a little bit unpredictable. But so the answer to your question is we, as an executive team, look at those numbers all the time and see if there's something we can tighten up.
And I think for somebody that, and Chief, this is not to blame or anything. It's just stating the facts, right? And Council William, correct my math if I'm right, right? When you have between 25% to almost 30% of your budget salary line is overtime, that's a lot, right? And we got to figure out how to get to a point where it is manageable. But I do understand, the work has to be done, right?
Yeah.
The work has to be done.
And Councilor, the reason we started doing those PC things, and I know you're not blaming anyone, but it's interesting to go through the PCs and we have done that in the past. For instance, some of the low-hanging fruit, we might say, I'm just using an example, hey, why don't we have festivals pay for police? And then everyone around this table says, whoa, wait a minute. Or, hey, why don't we stop this? And then someone around the table goes, whoa, wait a minute, don't stop doing that. So if you look at these PCs, you're going to find that every one of them is something that someone around this table, whether it's the mayor, councilors, neighborhood groups, have asked us to do, and it's difficult to pull out of. But we can tighten it, and we will look to tighten it.
Well, if I could just add something, Counselor. The other thing that kind of gets lost in the budget a little bit. So you're looking at that 5104 line that's $6.5 million for next year. If you go down to that section, the last two in there, there's one that's, they're both in parentheses. Those are offsets to the overtime line that are reimbursed from elsewhere. So from an accounting perspective, whether the city is paying the money or whether, say, the school district is paying the money, it all shows up in that 104 line as an expense. Then when that reimbursement down in those parentheses comes in, it offsets. So we might be asking for 6.5, but just rough numbers doing it, if you back out the 1.6 at the bottom there, we're actually only spending 4.9 of city money, assuming all the reimbursements come in as expected. Also, the revenue line that one of the counselors asked before, again, when we pay Centro, it hits that 104 line. That revenue line from page 8 is also an offset. So you, again, if, using my numbers, we're spending 4.9 of city money plus whatever revenue comes in that other line. So we're not actually spending or even asking to spend $6.5 million of city money. those reimbursements are in there as well. So just something to add a little color to the number.
Well, we are out of time, and fire department is patiently waiting somewhere. Yes.
You know, I just want to say, I know you got to be a little wistful. This is your last budget presentation
You know?
before the Common Council. And, you know, I've known you a long time, Chief, and I just want to congratulate you on your years of service. You've done the city proud, you've done us proud, and you're a great police chief.
I appreciate that. Where's the cake?
Yeah, we can commit you to not retire, maybe be a school patrol officer.
There you go.
What a great idea.
I mean, believe me, I'll be walking out the door happy as a clam.
Well deserved.
And happy to do it. No, I've appreciated it. Well, I don't know about every year, but I've appreciated most of it. Most of my career. It's been great, you know?
The other positive is you don't have to see us next year.
I know.
Yeah, I might just sit back there for fun of it.
All right. Anything else? That will do it for us. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, everyone.